Welcome back to Energy 101. I'm Dr. Sam Shelton. We're continuing to talk about energy independence. Energy independence is a topic that we read a lot about in the media. We see what appears to be conflicting opinions and conflicting information about how close to energy independence we are and whether we're making progress or we're not making progress toward becoming more energy independent. And we've already seen in the last module, you can view and define energy independence in many, many different ways, and that's what people do, unfortunately, to make their own point. They do that sometimes. So what I'm trying to do here is show all the data and show some of the various ways you can slice and dice the data and come out with what appears to be different results regarding whether we're energy independent or not energy independent, and what we can do to make ourselves more independent and whether we're making headway in that direction. So energy independence, this is the part 2. The last module was also on energy independence. So this is the big picture, and it shows all of our energy resources. It shows crude oil, natural gas liquids, coal, and renewables. And the blue is the U.S., what we produce within the U.S. Right here. And the red, this is, as we noted here, U.S. produced, and the red is the bar is the amount that we import. So as we saw last time, if you recall, we import about 60% of our oil and into the U.S. from outside this country, and we produce about 40%. Natural gas, we import only a little bit, and that being about 13% from Canada. We've got natural gas liquids, which we defined what are earlier in a natural gas liquid section. They're the liquids that come out with natural gas, such as propanes and butanes and ethanes. And coal, here we actually export coal, so it's shown as a negative number. This is export. When it's below the 0, then that means that we're exporting it. And then renewables, of course, by almost definition, the renewables we get are all domestically produced. So this is really all of the data in and of itself, and how energy independent we are. Looking at this graph depends on how you slice and dice the data. But if we look at the oil imports, there are 2 ways to look at it. One way is that we just looked at it earlier, the 60-40 split. We looked at only the U.S. imports. Well, you can argue the fact that North American imports is really what we need to worry about, and not the U.S. imports, because we import significant oil from Canada and a little bit from Mexico. And we're saying those are stable, and we really shouldn't worry about the imports from those countries within North America. They're generally brought in by pipeline, and it's fairly easy and straightforward to import them, and we feel like those are secure sources. But let me point out, when we'll look at that in just a minute, but let me point out there's still an economic impact of importing that oil from even Canada and Mexico, and it's a significant economic impact on the U.S. and this dollars flowing out that could stay here and improve our economy. But that's the question, and as I've just said, we showed last time that from the U.S. alone viewpoint, not North America, but just the U.S., we import about 61% of our oil, and this is crude oil. When I say oil, it's synonymous with crude oil. It's the black stuff we get out of the ground before we start refining it. And we produce about 39%. Everything I'm talking about really in this whole course is based on 2011 data. I don't like to look at monthly data. It gets more erratic. It's hard to make conclusions from it. And so I wait until the close of 2012 before I update things and look at another year. So all of this for 2011. By the way, it looks like that we will produce more in 2012 than we did in 2011, and we imported a smaller percentage. So that's this 61% will go down in 2012. We expect it to, and the U.S. percentage that is produced here in the country will go up from the 39% when we get the 2012 data in. If you look at the preliminaries so far, that's the way it's looking. But what about North America? If you take out Canada and Mexico from the imported number, then we are importing about 43% from outside North America, and we are producing about 57% inside North America. And this should not say here, this is a, go back, this is a mistake that I have here on outside U.S. That's outside North America, okay? Outside North America, and this is what's produced inside North America. So the blue represents the oil we're producing in Canada, the U.S., including Alaska, and in Mexico. So we're getting about 40% approximately of our oil outside of North America, and 57–60% within North America. So if that's one number that you see, and to be stated properly, that is North American energy independence, not U.S. independence. But that's the way a lot of people have treated it, and some numbers you see or have used that. And it's certainly a legitimate way to look at it. It just needs to be made clear what we're talking about. We are increasing the amount of liquid petroleum, and so another way you can look at things is we can look at liquid petroleum independence, not oil independence, but liquid petroleum. And recall what we mean by liquid petroleum. Liquid petroleum includes oil, it includes ethanol that's produced, and it includes natural gas liquids. So those are what we call petroleum, liquid petroleum. And when people say petroleum, that's generally what they mean. Sometimes they use petroleum and oil interchangeably, and that's really very confusing when that's done. So let's look at how we're doing regarding liquid petroleum independence. And so here's what our production record is through 2011 for ethanol, natural gas liquids, and oil, which all add up to our natural gas petroleum. So here's the ethanol, here's the natural gas liquids, and here is the oil. And you notice, as we've seen before, our oil production has increased, our natural gas liquids has increased, and our ethanol production has increased. Now, we talked a little bit before about whether these three liquid petroleums should be added together. They really, in my mind, should only be added together if they're totally interchangeable. Well, on a near-term basis, they are not interchangeable in many ways on a one-to-one basis. I've already talked about natural gas liquids are used for several things, like ethanes are used to make ethylene and polyethylene plastic bags. For instance, your trash bags are made from ethane that comes from natural gas liquids, not from oil. Ethanol, what about ethanol? Well, ethanol is a direct displacement of oil that is used for gasoline in our transportation system. However, we've noted before, ethanol, a barrel of ethanol does not contain the same amount of energy as a barrel of oil. So you shouldn't really be adding those together on a one-to-one basis. It takes about 1.7 barrels of ethanol to displace 1 barrel of oil. So we really ought to be cutting the ethanol production by about 50% almost, about 40% to be exact, in order to, before we add it to the oil production. So there's a lot of nuances here, and you have to be careful when you're adding different energies types, energy sources particularly such as this, because they all do not have the same value. And which means several things. That number one, they can't be interchanged and they can't displace each other on a one-to-one basis. But anyway, that's a lot of the data that you're seeing is showing that. And on that basis, from the viewpoint of liquid petroleum, our imports come down to 50%. 50% is what our imports come down to there, and from 60%. And here's the oil produced, and that means liquid petroleum. And here, excuse me, that's oil. And this is ethanol, and here's natural gas liquids. So what we've done here, we made the pie bigger by adding these two for energy production to add to our oil, and that means that this percentage goes down. So it went down from 60% to about 50% by adding this to the oil to talk about liquid petroleum. So it's certainly a reasonable way to look at it, but when you quoting these numbers, you need to be careful and define exactly what you're talking about. And you're talking about liquid petroleum, or what some people refer to as merely petroleum rather than oil. So in a nutshell, about 60% of our U.S. oil used is produced in North America, and 40% is imported from outside North America, regarding North America. And back to just looking at the North American versus U.S. So that's just shows us some of the various ways that we can look at energy and oil independence. Thank you.